holding your nose, pick it out the top like this, and then dip it in the glass. All right, so I work in the wine industry, obviously, and because of that, every time there's a holiday, people want to buy me wine gifts, wine books. I think I have like 6 copies of Windows on the World at this point. Wine games, I have all sorts of like board games and trivia games. I'm gonna put that to good use right now. I have a wine trivia game that I'm gonna just play with the cards, basically. And I'm gonna go through some of these cards. I'll ask some questions. You can follow along and see if you know the answers. Let's go ahead and just have some fun here. So I got my first card. What kept some California wineries afloat during Prohibition from 1920 to 1933? And I would assume the answer they're looking for, well, do you know it? I would assume the answer that they're looking for is like religion, church wine, stuff like that. So I'll slide this up a little bit so I can't see the next question's answer. Sacramental wine, so yes, church. Next question is, true or false, Barbera grapes make red wines with light tropical fruit flavors and low acidity? Tropical kind of throws me off there because I wouldn't say tropical. I'm gonna go with false. Answer is false. Barbera wines are rich with black fruit flavors, black plum, black raspberry, cherry, and plum, and high acidity, not low. So Barbera is a grape that you mostly seen grown in Piedmont or Piemonte in Italy, which is why that high acidity makes sense. You're kind of up in the mountains, you got the cooler temperatures. A great producer, if you do want to try a Barbera, is Sigliuti. We do have a couple of them available right now, the Sigliuti Campas and Cerobuela, I think. Let me look it up. Yeah, Cerobuela. So Sigliuti, great Barbera producer up in Piedmont. They do make some other wines, but I'm a big fan of their Barberas. You're looking at somewhere around like $20-25 for each of the ones that we carry. And I'll have a link down in the description to all the wines that we talk about here. So next question. True or false, the saying, what grows together goes together, is demonstrated in the classic food and wine pairing of white truffles and Italian Barolo. That saying definitely does hold true. That's always the first thing I think about if I'm really trying to zero in on a wine and food pairing. White truffles, I have no clue where you get a white truffle. I know you can use a pig to find them. I'm just gonna go with true, and we'll see. True, the great Barolo is Nebbiolo. Yeah, I know that, but, you know, did you know? That's the important thing here. Next up, new card, we're gonna go true or false. Tannins or phenolic compounds are available to the winemaker only from the grape. Do you know the answer to that? Tannins, phenolic compounds, only available from the grape, true or false? Answer is definitely false. When you're putting wine in oak, you're getting some of the tannin from the wood, and that's why not only does oak influence the flavor profile, but it also gives you more texture and more tannin. Next question on this card. True or false, the Anjou district in the Loire Valley produces notable dry and dessert wines made from Chenin Blanc. Anjou. Is that Chenin Blanc? I know I've had plenty of them. We do sell some. I'm gonna go with yes. True. It is true. If you want to try some Anjou, I'll link some of those down in there too. I've had a handful of them over the years. They're not super readily available where we're at, but they are worth trying if you're interested in trying wines from smaller regions in France. Next question on here is, true or false, some white wines benefit from decanting? That's true. All wine benefits from decanting. I don't really care what anyone tells you or you want to tell me about it. Wine will never hurt from a little bit of decanting. It's, do you go too far with it? You know, I wouldn't leave like a Bogle Chardonnay sitting on the counter for 4 hours in a decanter, but for 20 minutes letting it breathe, it opens it up. Oxygen definitely can have some benefit, it's just you can't go too far. Their answer is true. They say white Burgundy, white Bordeaux, awesome examples. Oxygen can kill a wine, but a little bit can go a long way into improving it as well. True or false? Under-ripened grapes have better potential to make strong, high-alcohol wines than fully ripened grapes. Do you know the answer to this one? Well, the answer is absolutely not. Astoundingly no. The reason is that the riper the grape is, the higher the sugar content in the grape, which means there is more sugar available to be converted into alcohol. That's why you'll see a lot of like Zinfandel producers nowadays will list right on the label that it's an early harvest Zinfandel, because then you're getting lower alcohol, higher acidity, and some people like that balance more. Personally, I don't buy Zinfandel for high acidity. I think that's a little strange, but it is a trend in wine right now, especially over in California, to do like Early Harvest Zinfandels. If I have any of those available, I'll put that in the link too. Next question, this is about Spain. Which Spanish red grape makes deeply colored wines with aromas and flavors of strawberries, vanilla, spice, and tobacco? They give you two options here. I assume if you're watching this video, you probably know. If you don't though, I guess your options are, this is kind of silly, Albarino or Tempranillo. Could be a good learning moment for some of you. The answer is Tempranillo. That's Rioja, and that is quintessential Rioja, that oak influence, that red fruit. But Tempranillo is what I think of first when I think of Spain. Next question. This is a true or false. If a wine list and the wait staff are lacking key information, it is reasonable to ask to see a couple of bottles to make an informed choice. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't really get wine in restaurants because I know what their markups are. Which does superior in French on a French wine label indicate? A superior quality wine or a higher alcohol level or a high... Let's try again. Which does superior on a French wine label indicate? A superior quality wine or higher alcohol levels than usual for the wine? Do you know the answer to that question? I think I do because I am positive about what it means in, say, Chianti in Italy. I'm gonna go with true, and it wasn't a true or false, higher alcohol, because that is what it means in Italy, so it makes sense that it would mean the same when you move over to France. All right, which wine might a winemaker prevent from undergoing malolactic fermentation to preserve refreshing acidity? Red or white? If you don't know what malolactic fermentation is, well, I'll tell you after we find out the answer, which is white. So malolactic fermentation, basically you're turning the malic, there's enzymes that, I'm not a scientist, the enzymes show up somehow, either introduced or they're in a barrel from a previous fermentation. Enzymes act to convert malic acid, which is, I don't know, I always think of like a sour apple, you know, that really like high toned acidity. Converts that to lactic acid, and lactic acid is the acid that is found in things like milk. So obviously doesn't have that really like piercing high-toned acidity anymore. So you see this a lot in wines like Chardonnay. It is the reason that you get that buttery aroma and you get that kind of softer, some people might say gobby style of Chardonnay. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with oak, although most times we do associate oaky Chardonnays with malolactic fermentation because they do go hand in hand, especially those like the oak flavors like vanilla and things like that do kind of suit a softer wine a little better. So a great way to think about this is looking at something like think about like Kendall Jackson, definitely plenty of mallow there. You have that buttery note. It's not overpowered by oak, even though people always want to say that it is. It's not. And then look at something like Louis Jadot, Macon Village, or even a Beaujolais Blanc is, I think, actually a much better way to point it out. But either way, I'm going to link some Chardonnays down in the description, and I'll also maybe write something up somewhere so that you can get a better idea. Just off the top of my head, Kendall Jackson, mallow, and then let's go with Louis Jadot, Macon Village, or any Macon Village would be the opposite, less mallow, if any. Next question. Which white grape, wildly popular today, first grew in the northern Rhone Valley to make limited quantities of prestigious wines? Viognier or Pinot Blanc? This is an interesting question because I know there's plenty of Viognier, but I wouldn't consider that to be wildly popular. Let's see, what's the answer to this one? Viognier, yeah. So Coindreau is a great region. I'll link a couple Coindreau down there if you want to try some high-end Viognier. But Viognier is a fun wine because it has these like bright tropical aromatics, but the acidity doesn't come off the way that you kind of expect it to when you first take a smell of that glass. So you get that like pineapple, guava, and just tropical stuff going on the nose, but the acidity, it's much softer, lower acidity, really round. They tend to be high alcohol wines, and they're really tasty. And I like to give them to people that say, I only drink red wine, but I want to try a white, because you still have that weight that people want out of a wine when they seem to be red wine drinkers. And they are really expressive. They can be super aromatic, even at like value prices. So a couple of Viogniers that I would point out. Chateau Pescuy makes one called Le Perdu. We've carried this stuff forever, and I've always enjoyed it. It's a really good value. It's like $11. And this is going to be that Rhone Viognier that this card referred to. And I also really like Australian Viognier. Viognier has found a second home in Australia, and they are delicious in their own right. So Australia, being somewhere that's generally pretty gosh darn warm, does allow those grapes to get fully ripened. And something I would point out to try first if you're looking to try an Australian Viognier for the first time would be Yalumba Y Series Viognier. Like I said, these things can be super aromatic at really good prices, and both of these bottles are definitely examples of that. What is the classic French wine match for Beef Bourguignon? I feel like that should be pretty easy, but I know too much maybe, so do you have the answer? The answer is Burgundy. And the reason that the answer is Burgundy is because traditionally you're pouring a whole bottle of Burgundy into the Beef Bourguignon while you're cooking. So thing from place, just like we said before with that other card. This is a fun one. This relates to things like port. Which level of alcohol will kill wine yeasts and stop fermentation? About 10, 15, or 20%? Do you know? Do you know? 15, I believe, is the right answer. Yep, about 15%. That's why you don't really see wines that are much more than 15, if at all. You will see some of those like gnarly head party juice type of things that are 15.2, 15.5. Otherwise, you're looking at things like fortified wines. Yeast dying at 15% alcohol is something that is used in a lot of fortified wines. So for instance, port. When they make port, they want there to be sweetness, but they also want that higher alcohol content, because these are wines that needed to be preserved because they were shipped all over the world before we really had any technology that could preserve wines in the heat out on the ocean in a barrel. What they do is they take their grape must and juice and they start the fermentation. When it gets to the level of sweetness that they want, they add in neutral grape spirits, and that kills off the fermentation, gets the wine to an alcohol percentage that they want it to be at, and it preserves the sweetness. That was really useful on ships because the sweetness and the high alcohol and the tannin from aging in barrel for so long really preserved the wine when it was out on the seas. Of course, heat can still affect the wine, but it doesn't necessarily go as bad as quickly as, say, just like your regular run-of-the-mill, I don't know, cab or red blend, whatever they would have been doing back then, would go bad. Next question. True or false? Riesling wines are capable of the longevity usually associated with Cabernet Sauvignon. Do you know the answer? Most people would probably say no, but the answer is absolutely yes. The acidity and potentially the sugar levels in a Riesling both lend themselves to long aging periods. So if you're looking at a $10, $15 entry-level Riesling, like say 9 Lives, which is a great semi-dry Riesling that I really love, and the labels are really fun, versus something like a good Spotlese, say from Maximin Grünhaus, or however you pronounce that. The two wines are both gonna have some sweetness, they both have good acidity, but that lower end one is not built for the long term. Whereas when you go up into that close to $50 price point and hit that Maximin Grünhauser, you definitely can lay these bottles down. I had I think it was a 2014 that I just opened at the end of 2025, and it was freaking awesome. I think it was the same one that I'm gonna link down there. I don't quite remember, and I don't wanna look for the bottle image right now. But they absolutely can age, and you wind up with these like petrol and honey and a little bit more tertiary stuff that you don't find in a lot of other wines when you've aged them. True or false, wine glasses should be stored on a shelf upside down to keep dust out of the bowl? I'm fairly certain this is false, and I don't remember why. False. Upside down storage invites cupboard odors and stresses the fragile rim. That's what I thought. I couldn't remember the reason, but that makes sense to me. You don't want like the smell of everything in your pantry to wind up in your glass, because then you don't have a clean glass anymore. What is the principal grape in the great long-lived Rhone wines of Hermitage and Côte Rôtie? Do you know the answer to this one? The answer is Syrah. Syrah is a really diverse wine if you think about it. I mean, also called Shiraz in a lot of places, but same exact grape. So you go over to Australia, you look at, say, like a Penfolds Shiraz, and these are like really heavy, juicy, most of the time oaked, just like big, bold, in-your-face wines with dark fruit. They can be kind of like peppery and bacon fatty. And then you look over to places like Cornas and Hermitage, say Alain Vosges or Vincent Paris is actually a perfect example. We have a whole bunch of different Vincent Paris stuff. Those wines, you get a lot more lift to them. Those are cooler regions, so you get a little bit more acidity. You still have that dark fruit, but you get less of that like really gamey, musty, baked blackberry, and you get a little bit more like blueberry and bacon fat, if that makes sense. I don't know the answer to this one. I don't even know who the heck they're talking about. This is a pop culture one, maybe you'll understand it. What fortified white wine flavored with herbs and spices was a regular stand-in for French white wines in Julia Child's TV kitchens? I don't know who Julia Childs is. I'm gonna take an educated guess and say Lillet Blanc. Oh, no, just dry vermouth. Okay, whatever. Next question, true or false? Champagne is a blend of still wines that may include old vintages to make the wine consistent in style from year to year. True. That is true. Which country has established itself as one of the New World's most successful producers of Pinot Noir? New Zealand, Australia, or Argentina? I feel like you could make a case for all of those, but I think the answer they're looking for is New Zealand, because Central Otago is kind of, out of all the regions I'm thinking of, Central Otago is definitely the one that seems to be the next up-and-comer. True is no. Oh, that was the other question. Yep, New Zealand is what we're going for. I love me some Central Otago Pinot. Moonlight Race is delicious stuff. If you've never had a Central Otago Pinot, definitely should try a couple out, because like I said, this is the up-and-coming region when it comes to Pinot Noir in the world. And if you do want to try out that Burn Cottage Moonlight Race Pinot Noir, we do have it in stock. It's like $45 a bottle, maybe just under that, and I'll have that linked as well. This is a fun one. True or false? Tannin physically comes out of a wine over time. Tannin being the particles that come from oak or grape skins or grape seeds or grape stems, and they get held into the liquid and you can feel them on your tongue. It's that fuzziness that some people hate, some people love. But true or false? That physically comes out of the wine over time while it's in bottle in a cellar. Do you know? Do you know the answer? The answer is true. If you've ever had like a real old bottle of wine, and or if you've ever been in a restaurant when someone's pouring a real old bottle of wine and you'll see somebody, they'll have like a candle, is the traditional way. You can do it with a cell phone if you're at home. You're looking through the glass at the neck of the bottle while you're pouring to make sure that the sediment doesn't come out. A lot of what that sediment is tannin. What feeds yeast and thereby drops as alcohol levels rise during fermentation? If you were paying attention earlier in the video, you know the answer to this. Were you paying attention? Sugar. That's the answer. Yeast eats sugar, turns it into alcohol and CO2, and that's why you can do things like champagne if you trap the CO2, but it's also why the more ripe a grape is, the higher the alcohol potential there is for that wine. Next question, which is Spain's most widely planted, high-quality red grape varietal? Grenache, Carignan, or Tempranillo? See, if you were paying attention, this card's going to be easy for you, apparently, because the answer is Tempranillo. Yep. All right, next. And by the way, if you want to try some good Tempranillo, which is, like I said before, Rioja is pretty much almost always going to be majority Tempranillo, although I have seen some exceptions that were kind of weird. But if you do want to try some Rioja, Carlos Serra's Rioja Reserva is one of my favorite Riojas that we carry. It's under $20. We also have their Gran Reserva, and then they're just like entry-level, what's it called? Rioja Crianza. All three of them are awesome, but the Reserva is, for me, really just kind of perfect at the price point especially. True or false? Value-conscious cooks should use poor-quality wines for cooking because a wine's shortcomings retreat with heat. I don't know what answer they're going to give us on this card, but I mean, sure. No, I disagree. I disagree. If I don't want to drink it, I definitely don't want it in my food. because those flavors and everything is going into your food. The only thing that's really cooked out is alcohol. I mean, of course, I'm sure you put a bunch of garlic in a glass of wine, you're gonna wind up masking some of that garbage flavor. Yeah, I don't know what their answer is, but I say false. Yeah, they say false. Cooks are advised to only use wines they'd enjoy drinking. Bad flavors in the wine will still contribute bad flavors to the dish. It's a fact. Where are Sauvignon Blanc grapes most likely to get an oak treatment and the marketing name Fumé Blanc? California or Chile? The answer is... Can we do a drum roll? Do I have that ability? California. Robert Mondavi was the guy that first did this. They were looking for a way to sell their Sauvignon Blanc and make it stand out in the world. You may note that there are wines labeled Puy Fumé over in France, and those are Sauvignon Blanc. So Mondavi looked at his Sauvignon Blanc and went, what can we do to this? The oaked Chardonnays were doing really well for him at the time, so he said, let's throw some Sauvignon Blanc in a barrel and we'll call it Fumé Blanc. True or false? A cloudy appearance in the glass is not considered a fault in unfiltered wine. This is a conversation I've had with many a customer who, let's just say, maybe didn't really know what they were buying when they bought it. The answer is, cloudy appearance is not considered true. It is not always considered a fault. If you're buying a wine that is supposed to be filtered and fined and it's cloudy, you know, like if I bought a bottle of Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc and it was cloudy, I would be terrified of it. Maybe not terrified, but it wouldn't be right. But if you're buying something on the natty side, like say Skins by Field Recording, that is a natural wine, or at least close to it. It depends on your definition of natural, but the point is that it's unfiltered, unfined. And what that means for the wine is that you do have some particulate matter that winds up in the glass. You see this a lot with pet nats, especially because that fermentation finishes in the bottle and they don't get rid of the yeast from the pet nats. So you see it a lot with pet nats. That's actually probably the better way to tell. Something like, Field Recordings also does a great pet nat, and I'll have a link down there for that too. If you want to try some unfiltered wine and see what the heck I'm talking about, that's probably the easiest way to get a visual representation is getting a bottle of that. True or false? The Semillon grape makes the most renowned, long-lived, dry white wines of the Lower Hunter Valley in Australia. Do you know the answer? Do you know the answer? The answer is true. A great example of high-quality Semillon coming out of the Hunter Valley is Tyrrell's Wine Semillon. The vintage we're on right now, which is a 2024, got a 92 from Wine Enthusiast, and it made their best buys list. I think it was ranked somewhere in the middle of the pack, but really tasty stuff. And this is only a $20 bottle. So if you do want to try some high-quality Semillon from the Hunter Valley in Australia, this is a bottle to check out. Where on the tongue will a wine's sweetness be best discerned? The tip, the back, or the sides? This is a fun one because I teach people how to tell if a wine is sweet or fruity by using the answer to this. The answer is the tip. So if you take a glass of wine and you are tasting it and you're not really sure whether or not it's a sweet wine, this happens often with things like some Zinfandels, you know, like a Predator Zin, for instance. This is a wine that does not have much, if any, residual sugar. It's a dry wine. But I do have people that come and tell me it's sweet. And the reason that that's confusing is because it is a very fruity wine. And the way that you can tell whether or not a fruity wine is actually sweet is holding your nose, stick it out your tongue like this, and then dip it in the glass. So you hold your nose, you stick out your tongue, and you dip the tip of your tongue in the glass. And because you're not getting any of your olfactory senses used here, your tongue is doing all the heavy lifting, and your tongue will be able to tell you, is there sugar in this glass? So if you're ever tasting a glass of wine and you're not sure if there's actually any sweetness, or if you're just smelling sweet fruit, that's the way to do it. All right, that's about as much trivia as I can do today. I hope somebody got something out of this, and some of these bottles that I talked about are really cool. So definitely hit the link down in the description, and you can check them out and see if anything tickles your fancy. If not, click around the site. There's all sorts of stuff on there, and you can utilize our Ship 12 deals and all that good stuff. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and give me a follow and tell me down in the comments too, because this is pretty easy to do just on the fly. I don't have to plan too much for it. So I probably will do some more of this in the future and maybe look for some better cards that are a little bit more like wide range of like wine education levels so that they're not all so basic. I'd like to get some wrong for you because I feel like that would be fun. But anyway, I'll be back next week with something. I'm not quite sure what yet. Probably not more of this. But I hope this was a nice break from the lists. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Adios.